Welcome to Scene TV's broadcast of the 23rd Annual Legacy Awards Gala being put on by the American Foundation for the University of the West Indies. The event was held at the Pier Hotel in New York City on Wednesday, February 19. AFUWI says its mission is to source and administer private donations, maximize philanthropic efforts, and to develop strategic alliances with American corporations, foundations, alumni, and other organizations to develop programs and provide scholarships for needy students at the 4 UWI campuses in 17 countries. The Black Tie Affair will see 6 major awards being presented. Those awards: the Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Business Leadership, the Vice Chancellor's Corporate Award, the Pinnacle Award for Public Service Leadership, the Pelican Award, the Bob Marley Award, and the Legacy Award. Enjoy. Dr. McCullough, the 23rd year of this Legacy Gala. Well, let me ask you this. Between last year and this year, what has the foundation been doing? What has the foundation been up to?
Okay, so our primary goal is to raise funds for scholarship for students who attend the University of the West Indies. So we have had a number of events, and it's all geared towards raising funds. We have had, some get-togethers. We had a golf outing, and again, online raising funds to send to Jamaica to help kids with their scholarship. So that's all we do. We raise funds for kids to go to school.
The brand is very, very strong. How easy is it for you to approach the companies with the big pockets or the individuals with the deep pockets and say, look, you need to put a $50,000 or $100,000 here?
It's actually very difficult, and I'll tell you why.
Yes.
Because we're based in the U.S., and the University of the West Indies is based in the Caribbean. So, one of the pushback that we get is, why should we fund students in the Caribbean to go to school? So we have to make an impression that, it's very important, okay? A lot of these companies do business in the Caribbean. They, whether it's be the Jet Blues of the world or these major hotel chain, that, when you do business in the Caribbean, you're benefiting. So you should give something back. Educate some of our kids, and these individuals, maybe someday will work for your company. So it's a tough sell, but we're making some progress.
Well, let me tell you this. On behalf of those who have benefited from the work that you and your small team have done, what you do is the personification of the word altruism, and long may you continue.
Well, listen, thank you, but the work continues. And as I said before, we're very happy to do it. We'll work, to make, I would say to attain that dream. It's a moving target. It's not about helping one individual. It's helping generation. And what we think is important is that once pulling folks out of poverty, I think starts with education. If you're not wealthy, you're not coming from wealthy background, the only way to get out is through education, and that's what we're about. Providing education for these kids to make it better for themselves and for their family in the long run.
What a tremendous honor it is once again to welcome the UWI family, all of you, Gold Star members of the UWI family. Welcome. The question is always asked, why do we persist each year in doing this? My answer is always the same. It's because we are committed to principles and values, and we have a common vision. And these principles and values, they energize us. We are motivated by them to do what we do each and every year. And foremost among those principles is the concern for those who, through no fault of their own, have not been able to maximize and express their God-given talents. And we surround them and support them and enable them to make their contributions. And I also want to celebrate our American Foundation, Dr. McCalla and his remarkable team, Anne-Marie Grant. But I also wish to take a minute just to explore an important theme, which is you have seen this video on the tremendous global rankings and reputation of the University of the West Indies. And all of us in UWI, we spend a fair amount of time trying to untangle the difference between an elite university and an elitist university. We are not an elitist university. We are an elite university for the masses of the people of the Caribbean. And our pedagogy is built on the foundation that the energy in our societies originate with the masses of the people. The masses of the people. The vast majority of hard-working families, people who are materially poor, struggling to make a living, struggling to get their children through high school and college. But we are here for them. And this is why we do what we do each and every year. And finally, our students, the beneficiaries of your philanthropy, of your benefactions. Congratulations. I know that you're going to make us all very proud. And we thank you in advance. Friends and family, enjoy this special evening. Thank you.
Donna, the American Foundation for the University of the West Indies here again, 23rd year, this Legacy Gala. How do you quantify the importance of this event to nation building in Jamaica?
To be acknowledged and then to be put forward as an example, it really is good for the rest of the country to say that, what we are doing is acknowledging that what we're doing is right. Yes. It's right and we're doing the right thing. And we are really, really happy to get this award because we believe that we're an example of a company that is committed to coming from love. You understand? So if, love works, that's what we are saying, love works. And we're very successful on all fronts, in financially, in terms of our team member satisfaction, our client satisfaction, our shareholders, and the communities in which we operate. And we make a big difference in nation building, So for that reason, we are really happy to be able to be an example that love works.
Yeah. Do you ever get, I hate to use this term, but it is appropriate to describe the situation. Do you ever get blasé about collecting awards because so many people are honoring you, other members of the senior management team, the leadership of JMMB for things done over the years? Do you ever say, another award again, or is each one special and indicative of the work that you've been doing?
Very special. Very important. It is so, as I say, you really want to know that what you're doing is acknowledged, because we're doing something different,
Yes.
Because, so we're dealing with a culture of love. So we do it differently. We're dealing with best interest of all. So really, it's honored, we feel honored to be, acknowledged for that. Very serious, because we are believing that if all of us in Jamaica, all of us outside of Jamaica, really come from love and say, let us stand for the greatness in each other, what kind of world are we going to be creating? Mm-hmm. So it's beautiful to be acknowledged for this, because it means that people are seeing that it's of value.
Speak for yourself as a woman and the other women within the JMMB TT group, if I may extend it to that, because there were several generations of women, certainly your generation as well, who grew up with this glass ceiling, this hard upper exterior that they couldn't crack. Now there are generations of women coming knowing no glass ceiling and expecting to be judged on their merit and that success is within reach. How does that make you feel?
Oh, well, remember that we would not be here unless we had a woman that believed that. That is my mother, Joan Isabel Duncan. She never said no glass ceiling, none at all, when there was a glass ceiling. Okay, it could have been argued that it was a glass ceiling. Yes. But she was going to start her own company. And a company that was different, was going to be serious about being true to the values of love, openness, honesty, you know, that kind of thing where you can share how you feel. You can't really be, when you make a mistake, you can take responsibility. You don't have to, there's no pretense business going on there. People can be themselves and therefore they can be their best selves. Yes. You understand what I say? And it is because she really did not see any limitation for herself. Yes. And she always tell us that, yeah, that it come from a song. You have to have a dream if you're going to have a dream come true. Yes. Right? And that's where she come from. She didn't see any limitations. So it's a great example for us, for me, yes, and for all the women in our company.
It is for me a tremendous honor to present this Vice Chancellor's Award to Ms. Meredith Marshall, co-founder and managing partner of this brilliant emerging company.
People talk about prophets being without honor in their own land, and that prophets have feelings, and they feel hard done by when they don't get honored. I'm not saying that you're a prophet, although I'm sure you're a prophet of something, but how does it feel to get this honor?
It feels great to be honored by such a distinguished institution. Education is important to me. My Caribbean West Indian roots are important to me. And the recognition from your peers and your greater community, I think there's no greater recognition, quite frankly.
I want to drag you here because here's the thing. You have so many people who are millionaires, who profess to being self-made millionaires, who didn't go the formal route of education as certainly you did or your peers did. And they say, well, my success is a triumph for intelligence over education, as if to say to the generations coming that education is not important. What would you say to them?
Education is extremely important because no one can take that away. I know a lot of people who made millions of dollars and then don't have it today. So they can never take away your gray matter. They can never take away your mental fitness. And I think in formal education is important. There's also a social intelligence and an emotional intelligence that's important. But we've been denied, our people, formal education for a long time, and there's a reason for that. And I think we should not shun it. I think we should embrace it, and I think we should figure out a way to extend it to more of the masses.
And this foundation, the American Foundation for the University of the West Indies, I like to say it this way. They could have been involved in anything, but they're involved in reinvestment to ensure that another generation gets a leg up on the ladder up.
Absolutely, absolutely. My father was probably much smarter than me just naturally, but he didn't have the opportunity. He worked hard. He instilled pride and a love for education in his kids. My mother the same. She went to high school, but at the time her younger siblings had the chance to go to university here, but she didn't. But all five of her children were able to go, thank God. And most of us have grad level degrees as well, multiple degrees. And so it's important for us to share that story. But it's also important for us to, again, create greater access. So anything we can do to raise money for the foundation so they can help the university students and bring up the next generation is very important to us.
You're watching the 23rd Annual Legacy Gala and Awards Dinner being hosted by the American Foundation for the University of the West Indies from the Pier Hotel in New York City. Much more after this break.
My story could have been different. They added the twist that allowed me to be the first in my family to graduate from university and have my mother watch me cross that stage.
Welcome back to the 23rd Annual Legacy Awards Gala being hosted by the American Foundation for the University of the West Indies at the Pier Hotel in New York City.
I'm Chanel Salmon, and a year and a half ago, midway my faith journey of attending university, I was considering ending that journey. It was my second year, second semester, right after Christmas, and I remember journaling that I'm starting a new semester and I feel so empty, low, and unsure if I would make it through. At that time, I was barred from accessing my grades or registering for the semester because I owed money. My mother could not continue paying, as she had supported me for the first year using all her savings. That Christmas, my father decided that he would stop helping with my tuition and he needed back any contribution he made. That caused me great pain. I was really at a dark place and felt as though all I've worked hard at all my school years was only but a thorn in my flesh. The Door Restaurant Scholarship changed the trajectory of my life. I was able to continue my duties as Vice Chancellor's Ambassador through UWISTAT, enter the Vincent Hosang Entrepreneurship Competition, and finish on the Dean's List for the semester. Thank you. At the end of my UWI journey, I had represented Jamaica as a UNESCO Jamaica Youth Ambassador, worked on UNDEF projects through Talk Up Youth, and graduated as a valedictorian nominee in 2019. I also secured a place in the coveted NCB Innovation Internship from a pool of 15,000 applications and moved a motion as a National Youth Parliamentarian of Jamaica for 2019. It is clear that all I needed was a chance to be facilitated to become all I could. The Door Restaurant Scholarship did not just give me some money, it gave me the ability to fight the odds stacked high against me. I can stand here today, boldly declaring the gratitude that is flowing from my heart for their kindness to humanity. My story could have been different. They added the twist that allowed me to be the first in my family to graduate from university and have my mother watch me cross that stage. After my internship, I moved back home to Montego Bay, St. James to save money and give back in my community by helping students to apply for university and to explore income-earning opportunities. I beg you, let us not get weary in doing good, because in due season, you'll reap a harvest. I am a part of the harvest of someone's generosity today. Thank you to the fabulous JetBlue for providing air travel for my visit here this evening. And to my donors, the Door Restaurant. I'm a better person today, and I'm forever indebted. Thank you. My journey continues.
The UWI Pelican Award recipient is proud of his or her Caribbean heritage and is an advocate for educational advancement, fairness, equity, and justice. Tonight, the UWI Alumni Association New York chapter is pleased to recognize the work of Professor Godfrey Gibbison.
So, Dr. Gibbison, the fact that you're being honored by this organization, it seems trite to ask you what it means to you, but I'm just going to ask that question just the same. What does it signify about your career so far, this recognition?
Well, it does mean a lot to me. I was quite surprised when I heard I was a recipient. Almost didn't believe it. I've spent my entire career as an educator. I'm a firm believer in the power of education to transform people and transform their destiny. So I am humbled and very thankful for the UA Foundation for honoring me with this award and honoring the spirit of the work that I've done for the last 25 years.
Your work is outside of the Caribbean now, largely. But from your vantage, let me rephrase. From time to time, there has been this discussion within the Caribbean about the amount of funding put into the UWI by, of course, the contributing nations. And sometimes persons say, well, they're putting too much and they should put some elsewhere. Do you see the benefit of the level of funding that has gone in over the years? And would you even support greater funding to allow the institution to do even more?
Let me put it this way. If anybody is thinking about cutting funding to the University of the West Indies, I would say to them, do not. Do not. Providing the opportunity for young people to get an education is critical for economic mobility personally, but it's also critical for the place of the Caribbean in the world. The jobs of the 21st century will be primarily jobs of people who are highly educated, will be primarily jobs of people who can create and can innovate, and who can solve problems. That means you need an educated populace. And what the University of the West Indies does is create an educated populace that helps to spur economic development in the Caribbean and beyond. The impact is way beyond the Caribbean. So it is absolutely critical that funding stays in place and that funding even be expanded, because bright minds come from anywhere. One of my professors in graduate school used to say, there is no monopoly on good ideas. Good ideas come from everywhere. But folks need to have an opportunity to be able to bring those good ideas to the table.
It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your money is? Vice Chancellor Beckles, to the board of the American Foundation for the University of the West Indies, and then I'll say three other words that just personify greatness. Anne Marie Grant. Hey, hey. Education is derived from the Latin educo or educare, which means to lead out. For young children, it leads them from innocence to understanding. For teenagers, it leads them from wonderment to appreciation. And to those who've excelled and are able to go on to the college, university, or graduate level, it brings them an opportunity to receive all the skills and training they will need, and hopefully the concern and compassion for their communities, as long as they can afford to go to college. Now, earlier this evening, I was really moved by the words of Dr. Cyrus McCalla when he said that he hoped that the University of the West Indies would expand from just a regional area to a global-wide network for education of young people. And in saying that, it made me think that if that is possible, that perhaps we will turn to the University of the West Indies to learn American history, since too many schools and colleges don't teach it as it is right here in the United States.
Governor, it's the 23rd year that the American Foundation for the University of the West Indies is putting on this Legacy Gala. What does it mean to you to be associated with an event such as this and an organization such as this?
Well, what I learned through my family just growing up was the tremendous emphasis in West Indian households for education. I mean, that was something that people wanted to excel at and competed. And so as the son of a man who became the first African-American vice chair of the National Democratic Committee, and he became the first deputy mayor of New York City and Secretary of State of New York State, he really accentuated the need for education. And so for this to be the 23rd anniversary of a revenue-generating event for the University of the West Indies, it's a pleasure to be here. And then the added benefit of being honored will, it's a moment when you're in the spotlight, but the warmth of that award will stay with me for a long time.
Yeah, I'm sure you have a long time left in service, but whenever the time comes for you to say, you know what, I'm going to put my feet up, put on my slippers, and get my pipe out and my newspaper and just relax. Whenever that time comes, how would you want your legacy to be assessed? What is it that you'd want to leave as the mark that Governor Patterson did this or represents this?
Well, as a grandson of a woman, Evangeline Rondon Patterson, who was the secretary to Marcus Garvey when in Harlem, on I believe 123rd Street is where his office was, and growing up with all of that history right in my own family, I think I would like for people to say that I took advantage of whatever skills and whatever education and whatever ability I had to try to make life better for so many people. Growing up blind and being one of the first disabled students to ever go to public school, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere unless I got a lot of help from a number of people. And so the opportunity to try to give it back and to change the terrain for those generations of not just people from the West Indian community, but anyone who comes behind me, if it was a belief that I tried to make some change and achieved that a lot of it, would be what I would hope my legacy would be.
University of the West Indies, Mona campus. And I am a 2019-2020 recipient of the Gregory Belinfanti Scholarship from the American Foundation for the University of the West Indies Scholarship Program. After graduating from high school, my mom told me she couldn't assist me financially anymore if I wanted to continue studying. So I worked hard for the summer and paid my fees for my first year in 12th grade. As the second year approached, I was not able to get a job, so I sold all the valuable items I owned, including most of my clothes, to pay for my second year tuition. I was all set and ready to start studying at the University of the West Indies when I received a text message from my father stating that he wouldn't be able to assist me in any way. At a point, I was hurt and I was shocked because immediately after he sent me that message, he went on a vacation trip abroad. His decision to not assist me left me in a position where I was homeless in Kingston, broke, and in debt. I wiped my tears and said to myself, "You will go make it through this." During my leave from school, I was determined not to be defeated. So, I started a small culture wearing business that consisted of a batch of 50 broilers. In no time, my batch increased to 250 chickens. Then come another setback. Lo and behold, the chickens died. No, I wasn't able to pay the rest of my tuition, and I wasn't even able to pay the rest of my accommodation fees. At this point, I gave up. I can't be putting myself through all this. I tried to fight the odds of achieving my goals, and I lost. So, I promised myself that if I don't find a solution, December would be my last month in school. Distressed and struggling during last semester, I aggressively explored my multiple options for assistance. Just when I thought all hope was gone, I was notified that I am a recipient of the Gregory Bell-Infante Scholarship. Thank you, Mr. Bell-Infante. Thank you, AFUWI. Thank you, JetBlue, for bringing me here. This is my first time in the United States of America. Thank you to all the donors of the AFUWI Scholarship Program. Thank you. Thank you for believing in us. And thank you for giving us the opportunity for securing a brighter future. Thank you.
You're watching the 23rd Annual Legacy Gala and Awards Dinner being hosted by the American Foundation for the University of the West Indies from the Pier Hotel in New York City. Much more after this break.
The time we met, and that's the day I knew you were my man. 'Cause I want to tell you how much I love you.
Welcome back to the 23rd Annual Legacy Awards Gala being hosted by the American Foundation for the University of the West Indies at the Pier Hotel in New York City.
St. Lucia, you all know, is the island that has a habit of producing Nobel laureates. The first of these Nobel laureates, Sir Arthur Lewis, was also the first Vice Chancellor of this university. When Professor Gibbison stated that if a Prime Minister intends to cut university funding, they must think about it, that was not meant to apply to our distinguished Prime Minister. Our distinguished Prime Minister is a great supporter of education, corporate education, entrepreneurial education, development education. And we are very proud of his legacy indeed. Prime Minister.
And it was great walking around tonight, reconnecting with a lot of the people that I had met up here in the diaspora from my Air Jamaica days and my tourism days, and to all of you, because there's so many of you, just to say how great it is to see all of you and to thank you very much for coming out tonight and continue to support this incredible cause.
Prime Minister, first of all, congratulations on the award. I want to discuss this with you, though. For several governments in the Caribbean, there is an absence of what finance ministers love to say is new money. So they say, well, if there's new money to come into the system, obviously it's going to have to come from greater taxation. Nobody wants to do that because they say the age of austerity is over. When you see many governments having to share resources across national security, which is an increasing problem for several states, healthcare, of course, education, and of course the day-to-day running of government, where is that new source of funds going to come from to fund education at the level that is necessary to advance the development of our people in the Caribbean?
So I think the concept is that what is our potential? Because we keep measuring success by percentage growth every year, right? But who's measured our potential? So I'll give you an example. If you discover oil, an engineer can tell you how much oil there is, and another engineer can tell you how much money it's going to cost to extract the oil, And an economist can tell you into the future how much money you think you're going to earn. So therefore, when you're making this investment, that you know what your full potential is. Who's ever worked out the full potential of our countries? So in my case in St. Lucia, our GDP is $1.7 billion, population of 170,000 people. Barbados has a population of 270,000 people and has a $4.5 billion GDP. The Bahamas, 370,000 people, $12 billion GDP. Nassau is 8, Paradise Island is 4, and Aruba, 110,000 people, $3.5 billion GDP. So I know that we're not even coming close to achieve our overall full potential. And so therefore, St. Lucia's GDP needs to be upwards of $4 billion. And how do I know that? Because in order to be able to make the investments in education, healthcare, infrastructure, in order to be able to provide our citizens with a minimum standard of living. Okay, so I'm not even talking about one that just survives, a minimum standard. Minimum standards that you can buy a house, that you can save some money, right? That you can feed your kids, you can educate your kids, and you can afford healthcare is the minimum. And so how do we do that is by exactly what you're saying. So yes, and the problem that we have is that taxation has the diminishing return.
Yes.
So, in St. Lucia, when we lowered the VAT rate from 15% to 12.5%, we're now earning as much VAT revenue as we were before, but our corporate tax revenue has gone up by 25%. So we know that taxation is not the root of that investment. What we did in St. Lucia is we understood that our airport tax was $25. On average, the region was $100. So were we getting more airlift because we were cheaper? And the answer was no.
Yes.
So what we did is we increased the price of our tax, which is primarily being paid for by the tourists. But we put it into a fund outside of the government to be able to fund now our capital investment program. So we're building a new airport terminal. We're spending over $100 million on fixing up the roads. We've spent about $15 million in fixing up schools. We're making investments into sports programs and after-school programs. We've created our first sports academy. And the money that's coming to do that is coming from this tax. Plus, we also put a gas tax so that people understand that when you pay the tax, they know where it's going, and it's a dedicated sum of monies. And we've been able to successfully find some taxes that don't overly burden the economy, create the austerity, but at the same time generate revenue for the state to be able to do it. And we must now become more efficient. So e-government becomes critical. We just came from the CARICOM heads of government meeting, and we've spoken about this. Regionalism has to be about improving the quality of governance and the cost of governance. There are too many things that we're trying to do individually by ourselves, and we just can't get the overall level of efficiencies to be able to do so.
Do you accept, Prime Minister, that, well, let me phrase it this way. I hear many prime ministers from time to time lament brain drain. And I'm saying to myself, well, that's ridiculous, because you'd never be able to pay the brightest and the best that you've trained across teaching, nursing, medicine, engineering. You just can't. The economies aren't large enough. So if you train them, send them overseas to the USA, Britain is now rolling out a new points-based immigration system under the Johnson administration. The remittances come back to you anyway, so you benefit. So why not invest more into training more, so you keep you keep a larger percentage, but you keep on sending the best and the brightest away so they can contribute to the economy? I don't see enough governments thinking that way. What's your take on that?
Well, we've been focusing on that. So we've basically said nursing is an example where we believe that that's an export industry. We think tourism. So we're actually getting international tourism university to open up in St. Lucia from Lausanne University that trains middle management. Now, once you're trained in middle management or senior management, you can work anywhere in the world. It's the fastest growing industry in the world. And it's sad for me that a region that is as dependent on tourism and is as good as tourism, where is the university?
Absolutely.
Right? Where are we training these skill sets, which not only in terms of actually directly working in the sector, but in financing and in so many of the support sectors. But I also want to say to you that I think that what we need to do is to do like what Estonia has done. So Estonia was in a unique position in that 1.2 million people, terrified of Russia, and said, how do we create a defense? And they decided to create an e-government and put all of their government on a cloud. And the cloud is stored outside of Estonia. So if Estonia was ever invaded, everybody can still go online and vote, and business goes on as usual, right? Now, what that did is it created a borderless country. And so, I mean, I met these young kids who designed an e-bike, an electronic bike that folds. So if you get on the bus, you can carry it with you. Yeah, and they patented globally. They then got a Chinese company to manufacture it, and then they used PayPal to do the system. So the idea from Estonia, patented, but benefited from the global competitiveness in order to be able to deliver it. And when you can do that now, it means you can stay in the Caribbean because people don't want to leave home, right? So the point is, how can we create economies that allow our people to compete on a global basis? And this is where the idea of branding becomes in. And look, Jamaica is so far ahead, but yet it's not.
Yeah.
So Bob Marley.
Bolt.
Okay, well, I'm going to go stick with Bob Marley because Bolt hasn't translated into an industry.
But
yeah?
insofar as an iconic figure.
And he reinforces the brand.
Yeah.
But the difference is that Bob Marley or music,
yes,
right, is an industry.
Yes.
And so in the success of Bob Marley, where is the incubator that is creating these musicians, teaching them how to copyright themselves? Why are so many of them going off and signing too early and not getting cents on the dollar, right? And guess what? This is a borderless industry. And this is an industry that now is brand reinforcement because in St. Lucia now we have a music called Denry Segment, right? And that people are loving it and difficult to imitate, right? And it's up to my government to be able to assist now these young guys to become business people and how now to maximize that. Because Bob Marley was all over the world.
Yes.
I mean, and what he did for promoting Jamaica was
the Caribbean.
And the Caribbean.
Yes.
I'm not taking away from that, but I'm just saying to you that there are certain industries that are borderless that do two things in brand support, and so our athletes in terms of their success. But what are we doing? So Jamaica's success in athletics is your incredible elementary and high school programs and the quality of competition that you have.
Fierce.
Yeah. Right? And great coaching. Right? And so, Hussein's coach stayed with him the whole time. I mean, that boggles my mind that a high school coach was able to make that incredible transition. And it just tells you that you have great talent. And the key is, how do we now do that on successive basis? So I think that we need to look at industries that are borderless, industries that can allow us to remain in our region and compete. And there's more and more of that's available. And e-government, e-economy, all of those things augur extremely well. Your stock market, fantastic.
And the junior stock exchange as well.
In terms of really capitalizing some of these companies and getting them going.
When you come from somewhere where passion lives deep inside of you, and the only thing that is preventing you from being a great contributor is the fact that you're poor, you realize that the struggle is real. In an age in which so many things take your time and attention, it is very easy for you to overlook the request to help somebody who you don't know in some far-off land, which you only go to visit when it's cold and you enjoy sand, sea, and sun. And it is easy to assume that living in the islands is a life of leisure, swinging on trees and having cool coconut water and eating sugarcane. But many of us who are from the islands know it's totally different. And many of you who have visited the islands know it's totally different. And many of you who are interested in being a better person by creating a better world know it's totally different. So again, I'd like to thank you very much for being here. The students who receive the money from the AFUWI are financially challenged, and that is the only politically correct way I can stand here and describe it. Our students are poor, but they're young and they're talented, they're ambitious and they're determined, and nothing is going to stop them. As you choose to spend these few moments with us this evening, on behalf of the 537 scholarships that we have awarded over the last 10 years, and the approximately $7.5 million in goods and services, because of your help, we have been able to pour into the young minds of the region and into the Caribbean, and by extension into the world, I'd like to thank you very much. Please.
Anne-Marie, it's been another exhausting day. I know that the effort from you and your team has been well worth it. How has it been from your perspective?
I think every time that you get a chance to showcase the plight of our students, it is worth it. And every time you get to interest others who may want to help your students, it is worth it. And I think occasions like these do both.
You know, I was speaking to Dr. McCullough, Dr. Cyrus McCullough earlier, and he said something which surprised me. I would have thought that given the aim of AFUWI, that people would have been falling over themselves to help, to donate, to assist up the ladder someone who is constrained by poverty. But he said, no, funding is a challenge.
It is. The harsh core reality is that higher education is not sexy. And so when you compare that to a more vulnerable age, like elementary or kindergarten or pre-K or primary or even secondary, then kids in tertiary are not as vulnerable. And as somebody, once I approached somebody who had gone to the university and gotten what we would classically call a free ride here. That is, I think they went at a time when there was free education, and the person even boasted about getting a free voucher on Jolly Joseph bus. And as old as I am, I was not familiar with that. But the point is that their perspective was, "Them a big old grab a picnic, make them go walk." So because they're at that age where they can be, I think, mentally decisive and independent, as well as they're on the cusp of being physically able to fully take care of themselves, and they are at the age where they can, enter the work world and sustain themselves. It is not an attractive place to be. So it is a challenge. I think the competing needs in our society also makes it unattractive. There is issues with health and health disparities. Then there are issues of climate and environment. There are issues,
national security,
there are
crime.
issues of crime and violence. You took the very thought out of my head. And there are a myriad of other issues that really, they become even more like bread and butter issues as opposed to higher education. And so many persons have managed to live fairly successful and rewarding lives with only secondary education, or back in the day, only primary education. So, in a community and in societies like the Caribbean, where the majority of the people don't have higher education, and many people have livelihoods and are very, very successful by any standard, and we are considered to be amongst the happiest in the world. We're able to be world-class athletes and world-class musicians and world-class scientists and pretty much excel in almost every field. Then in many instances you can, if you stretch, if you bend the paradigm, you might be able to see why others may not think it is as important.
And finally, the effort that you would have put in as an individual, and of course the people who support you, I'm sure that when you feel tired, when you feel most enervated, that is all offset by the joy that the beneficiaries speak of deriving from this whole process. Yes,
and it's a bittersweet joy, because what happens is that you come face to face with the reality of the challenges, authentic challenges, day-to-day challenges of meeting basic needs that many of these people have. And as much as you provide a scholarship for them to overcome it, that's just one child. That's just two persons, two children. That's just two households, or 50 households in our case. But it is what it brings to the forefront is that the challenges are there, and those challenges can be insurmountable for many people. And how many intellectual minds and how many innovators and entrepreneurs and leaders, what you call skilled persons, do you lose in the process because you are not able to fund them and to help them to walk through that door of opportunity in higher education? And so you don't know. The opportunity cost loss could be tremendous, and maybe we will never know in our lifetime. But I believe that I believe it sounds cliche, but I believe it is in the Caribbean that great minds are made. And I believe that the potential of the Caribbean, the peoples of the region, is yet to come. There's more. There's much more. Them think we done, we just come.
You I'm sure, are emboldened, you're motivated, you're ready for the rest of your life.
Yes, actually, I have a plan for everything. So you know whenever you make a plan and it's not going your way, you're not like okay. But I literally have a plan for everything. Whenever I'm in a terrible situation, I've always made up like some form of plan to get myself out. And some people tell me that, oh, you have an entrepreneurial mind. Yes, I know that, but at the same time, I see myself helping others. I see myself helping the environment and becoming an environmental consultant. I will be able to achieve my goal. I'm very proud of tonight's effort. It's one of the galas that we have made the most money by the text pledge. It's our first year and it was truly a success. The stories by the scholarship recipients they were very heartwarming. They pulled at your heartstrings. It had me in tears. I saw people dabbing their eyes, because Sanika especially spoke so profoundly about her struggles that, it just had to move your heart, and it shows determination, it shows the importance of education, and it shows us that we will stop at nothing to achieve our dreams.
Tear-jerking testimony given by 2 scholarship recipients, the highlight of a very enjoyable evening, and we certainly hope you enjoyed the evening's events.